Initially, it's incumbent upon the court to accurately score the guidelines. We went through these in detail before this procedure started, and the court is very confident that the guidelines are accurately scored. Just parenthetically, the discharge of a fireman at a building, typically we see that in gang type of activities where some nefarious individuals are trying to send a message to an opposing group and they fire rounds into a home. Sometimes they hit people, sometimes they don't. Obviously, that's not the case here. This is far from that. So it's, in the gang situation, there is an intent to either inflict harm or to send a message. There was no intended consequence here. Certainly there was an act, but there was no intended consequence here. Obviously, the result was catastrophic. The guidelines do contemplate that you do not have a criminal history. That's your, as far as the prior record variables go, that is a 0. So those are contemplated. As far as the need for rehabilitation, there probably isn't any. I don't think you pose a risk to the public. I don't think anybody here believes that you pose a risk to the public, as eloquently stated by your attorney. So as far as we need to lock somebody up for a lengthy period of time because they pose a risk, that's not going to factor into this scenario because you do not pose a risk of harm. The guidelines do not factor into youth, and sometimes youth make unwise decisions. By the same token, the result of this is permanent and profound, it's catastrophic. I've received letters on behalf of the victim and their loved ones, and I've received letters on behalf of the defendant. All of them were very respectful to the opposing side, very, very respectful. And they were very good, I must say. And I read each and every one of them. I can assure you of that. I spent quite a bit of time last week going over this material. Frankly, quite a bit of time contemplating where the court was going to land, and that decision has not been made until now. So as far as the guidelines go, I don't think we need to sentence you within the guidelines. That's simply too much time based upon you did not have a nefarious intent as far as the consequence goes. There's no history, you're youth, and the fact that you're not a danger to the public. So I think there's a deviation downward from the guidelines that needs to be done. Where I've landed is actually a couple of grids down. So as the attorneys have indicated, I've indicated that the guidelines contemplate a sentence, and they're advisory, but they're pretty strongly advisory, of between 108 and 180 on the minimum. That's between 9 and 15 on the minimum. We're going to go below that. I think that where the attorneys originally contemplated the guidelines might land, that's probably where the sentence should land. It's not going to fix this situation because it's not fixable. It's not giving value to Connor because he was invaluable. I mean, I just can't. But what we do need to recognize is that you were intoxicated, fired off multiple rounds in a dwelling where you knew there were people, and Connor died as a result of that. So we're going to hold you accountable for that. By the same token, recognize that you do have a future, and I think where I've landed here, within the contemplated guidelines is where to go, but it's going to be at the top of the guidelines, influenced by the letters that I've received. It is the sentence of this court that you be turned over to the Michigan Department of Corrections for a minimum of 70 months, a maximum of 300 months. You have credit for 29 days previously served, must pay a restitution of $8,000, must face state cost, crime victim costs, and DNA fees that are required by statute. This is a final sentence. You may file an application with the Court of Appeals regarding your conviction and sentence. If you're unable to hire an attorney, this court will appoint one to represent you at public expense. You need to fill out the paperwork you've been provided and return it within 42 days. That is the sentence. And for those in the gallery, the king still sits on the throne.
Your Honor, there's a request for restitution amount of $8,000 to the crime victim's compensation.
That's where we'll go. Thank you very much. We are in recess.
Thank you, Your Honor.